Hello and welcome to the Webflail podcast, the podcast where we interview successful Webflowers about their 3 biggest failures as creative entrepreneurs. Now, obviously, this is the video recording of the podcast, but if you want just the audio, head to Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts to listen to the edited version there. Also, I send out a banging newsletter every week called the Webflail Roundup to help you to become a more successful Webflower. So I send you the recording of the podcast, I send you 3 Webflow jobs, and I also send you an article and inspirational websites. So why not go sign up? Just check the link down there or go to webflail.com. Now, let's get into the episode. Hello, and welcome to episode 24 of Webflail, the podcast dedicated to uncovering the greatest failures behind the greatest Webflowers, because success often comes after learning from many failures. I'm your host, Jack, a failure connoisseur, and today my guest is Ailín Tobim. Ailín has had an interesting life. After studying biochemistry and immunology, he worked, I definitely butchered that. He worked in labs in cities and realized he craved outdoor living. Leaving that life behind, he became a surf instructor and then learned WordPress, Wix, and Shopify before training as a front-end developer and finding Webflow. He now lives on the west coast of Ireland and runs Happy Devflow, where he offers different development packages and retainers. Ailín, it's a pleasure to have you on the Webflow podcast.
Hi, Jack. Thanks very much for having me. Straight off the bat, name is Ailín, but I go by Alan. All good. So it's the Irish version of Alan, and yeah, that's good.
Okay, straight off the bat, I've already fucked up this interview. I will re-record that to actually do the edit. Anyway, Ailín.
So Ailín or Alan, yeah, Alan is easiest. Ailín is the Irish version.
Ailín. Yeah. Okay, I can say that. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna do that from now on. We'll forget that was a complete fuck up at the start.
That's all good. So, do you want to record that again, or do you want to just keep going?
I'll record it out of episode because, yeah, I think it will sound better.
Yeah, Ailín Tobim. Just go with Ailín Tobim. It's all good.
All right, awesome. So let me start off this episode by saying congratulations on becoming a dad last month. How are you finding it?
Yeah, it's lovely. It's time consuming, but it's just so lovely. I didn't think I'd enjoy it this much, to be honest. And yeah, it's my uncle said to me when we found out we were pregnant, he just became a granddad, and he said that it opens a tiny door in your heart that you didn't know existed. So I think that's pretty apt.
That's a beautiful phrase. I've never heard that.
Yeah, nor did I. And he's this huge, burly former sergeant. It's the last person you expect to have something so poetic coming out of his mouth. But there you go.
Very beautiful phrase from the army sergeant.
Yeah.
And are you having enough time to shred? I see that you're a big surfer.
No, I haven't surfed. I haven't surfed a day, a minute, a second. I've mind surfed since. But that's all good. And there actually has been amazing waves here for the last 2 weeks. But yeah, it's all good. It'll come around again. I actually was surfing. So my partner went into labor on a Monday morning at like 2 a.m. And I surfed that Sunday. So it's not too bad.
I thought you were about to say, and I was out surfing at 2 a.m. So I had to come back.
It has happened that friends of mine have been surfing and their partners were in the early stages of labor, so yeah.
Wow, that must be horrific to hear, like someone shouting across the beach, you gotta go home.
Yeah, well, it's not, it's not like the TV where things kind of, or the movies where it's like drop everything. It's a slow progress getting into. So yeah, guys have come home, had a shower, and just been like, oh, we need to go to the hospital now. That kind of thing.
Wow, that's such a crazy life event to happen. Yeah. But I'm glad that you got to get a last surf in, because I guess now it will be a lot of daddy daycare, a lot of
yeah, but it's not a last one. There'll be a surf sometime in the future. It's good.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. And I want to start off by talking about a tweet that I saw you write. So You wrote, I'm a little bit different from most Webflowers. I didn't come from a design background, so I look at things slightly differently. Can you tell anyone listening about how you look at Webflow building differently?
Okay, yeah. So, I think of Webflow as a development tool, more akin to something like VS Code, as opposed to a design tool, more like Figma or XD. So I think of Webflow as a visual way of coding. And what I mean by that is that if you're writing code on VS Code, you're publishing locally, and you're still looking at the work that you've done. You're looking at the initial HTML that is without any styling and how it's showing up in your page, and you're constantly writing, publishing locally, and using that reference to see whether or not you're making the right decisions or making mistakes. So I see Webflow as the reverse engineering of that you're seeing in real time what you're coding, and then sometimes you have to publish the site to see if there's different things going on. See if there's different things going on, particularly like custom code. So yeah, I look at it like a coding tool, a front end development tool, and then that would kind of not feed into how I build sites. I build them very much from structure of the HTML up, as opposed to what it looks like first and then fixing it. And I'm not accusing people of doing that, but designers tend to look at things and see how they fit and then reverse engineer that, whereas I would build it from the bottom up and more build it the way I would say a dev does.
But I think that's like a really important bit of insight to have, because I think most Webflowers, and this is myself included, have come to Webflow from a design like mindset and background, and they can't necessarily code nearly as proficiently as they can design. So would your advice be to young Webflowers that are maybe starting out, or someone that's just coming across from maybe a design background, to look at, learn HTML and CSS first before jumping into Webflow, or potentially doing that alongside using Webflow? Or what advice would you give to get the basics down?
I wouldn't necessarily say to do it first, but I would say to do it in conjunction. I actually think Webflow is an awesome tool to learn HTML and CSS, because I see it the same as using VS Code. So I think you can learn it, you can teach it and learn it through the eyes of someone who understands HTML or CSS. So I would just say don't disregard the fundamentals of CSS when using Webflow. Make sure that you understand classes. That's basically it. Once you understand classes, the whole thing is so much easier. And even understanding. Okay, so the way I look at the Webflow user interface is that you've got your elements section, and to me, that's your HTML. And then on the other side, you've got your styling section, and that's the CSS. And so if you can understand that when you pull an element over, that it's a piece of HTML, and then you add your class and you style it that way, and think of it like you're using a VS Code or something like that, then it makes things a lot easier.
That's really interesting advice. And are there any kind of crucial mistakes that you think a lot of Webflowers who aren't necessarily doing the basics well are making?
I think the one that I see the most of is understanding containers or not understanding containers. So just, I know this is kind of hard to visualize because we don't have any like whiteboards or anything, but a container is essentially a div block that has got a max width and then a margin left and right of auto. So if you pull in the the container from Webflow and give it a class of container, so just pull in the container from Webflow. It already has an auto left and right, and it already has a max width. I think it's 990, something like that. It's under 1,000 pixels, but it's around 990. Might be 940, but that doesn't matter. There is a tiny piece of hidden CSS already on that div block called, if you inspect the element, it's called W container. And if you don't understand that that's there, you could add a class to that and change the max width to, let's say, 1,600 pixels or 1,250, which a lot of people do, like 1,240, 1,300 pixels, so that they've got a more widescreen approach. If you add that class container to just a div block, you're going to have an element that is aligned to the left of the screen. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that I see. It's either that they've aligned something to the left, or they haven't understood that there might be how to change the container inside in the nav or something like that. So yeah, that's where understanding CSS and HTML is important, because those particular elements in Webflow already have CSS in them that we don't have control of in the UI, but we can control through custom code.
Mm. Important nugget there. See, this is the type of thing that, as like me, I'm coming from a design background. This is where I'm like, God, I really need to learn HTML and CSS next year. So thank you for dropping that nugget. We're not even 10 minutes in. I know we are now. But yeah, fascinating insight there. And just before we started this interview, we were talking about animations as well. I guess, designers might be like, woohoo, I can now do all these crazy animations. But can you explain for someone who's maybe doing loads of animations, but really not too sure how that's affecting their website performance, and maybe how can they optimize those animations to ensure that they are, not going to affect performance too much?
Yeah, like Webflow animate. First of all, I love Webflow animations. So much fun. They're like, it's probably one of the most fun part of the tool that you can have and use. And I've definitely over animated sites. I still over animate. My own personal stuff, I over animate all the time because it's fun. But if you want to use animations and make sure that your site is still performing fast, one of the things that I would do is I would attach the animation to a class. So I don't know, people have, okay. So page load animations, for example, you've probably noticed you've done a page load animation. It's on one particular page. You duplicate that page, and now you've got twice the amount of animations. Have you ever noticed that before?
Yeah, so you want to make this into a global class, right?
Yeah, so what I would do there is add that particular animation to like your page wrapper class or something, or a section, something like that. And then it's because it's to the class, it happens throughout the site, it happens globally, and then you're not multiplying the JavaScript over and over again. So that would be the one thing, to make sure that when you're doing these awesome animations, depends on the site as well, but particularly page load animations, that if you did that using a class instead of just to the page, it definitely speeds up the site.
Awesome. We've got two nuggety insights there. So containers have auto left and right. They've already got a class attached. So just be aware that, if you're dragging in a container, it's already got class attached to it in the code, and that's going to affect your build. So be aware. And then the second thing is with animations, if you're going to do page loads on multiple pages, you don't need to duplicate that animation across every single page. What you can do is make it a global class. And then as a result, you're not going to be duplicating that JavaScript every time. Have I got that right?
Yeah, that's perfect and super concise. Awesome.
Very glad you thought so, because I thought you were giving me that face like, no, you fucked
No,
up.
I was laughing at how like concise your was, and then listening to my own bullshit that you ramble there. So,
Well,
like,
no, I mean, I've only...
Hey guys, just a quick one to say that I write the Webflail newsletter every week, and it's meant for you to become a more successful freelancer. Check it out at webflail.com, or just look in the link just down there and sign up. Why not? It's free. It's going to be really helpful. Check it out. Back to the episode.
So we've done the technical insight, we've done the hard skill stuff. Let's talk a little bit about the soft skills of Webflow freelancing, and let's jump into your failures then. So tell me about failure number 1, underpricing.
Yeah. So I suppose when you asked me these failures, I was trying to think of what has affected me the most. And yeah, I think this is a thing that a lot of business people struggle with anyway. Like, one of my best buddies around here is a builder, and even though we've got complete like construction worker builder, he's got his own construction company, and we're always talking about the exact same problems: pricing, making sure that we're in profit, making sure that we're not going to be losing money, making sure that, and it usually managing clients, and most of the discussions come down to pricing. And one of the things that I've learned, so when I talk about underpricing, I mean, is that you are getting the amount of money that you want per hour for your job. So I'm not saying like let's say you charge €1,000, $1,000, 1,000 whatever for a job, and if you have said that I would be happy with €500 a week, and you get that job done in 2 weeks, you haven't underpriced. You've priced accordingly. If you have charged €10,000 and it takes you a year to do it, and you get paid €800 a month, you have undercharged. So that's what I'm trying to. That was the thing that I found really hard at the start, was that I was pricing jobs, and I got lots of work, but then I was not getting the amount of money that I was happy with per hour, and that caused problems. So yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, I think when you're starting out, you're trying to get a feel of the market, and also there's this kind of internal monitor where you're like, you know what, I feel kind of pissed off with this client, and it's probably because you feel like, you're getting the short straw. You're providing them tons of value, but you're not actually getting that financial return. And so I think it's completely natural to feel like you're undercharging, and you kind of need to keep checking in with yourself, because as your skill sets improve, naturally it makes sense that you're providing more value to people, and you need to adjust your prices accordingly.
Okay, so that so this is, I know we're kind of moving into my second one, which was overpricing, and I actually think they're kind of the same thing, because that we'll just stick with the job that's €1,000. If you're starting off and you get a job that's €1,000 and you do it in 2 weeks, and you've done 40 hours a week, you haven't killed yourself, you've done 80 hours over 2 weeks. It's not amazing money, but it's not bad. So I was getting annoyed when I was pricing something for €1,000 and it was taking me 4 weeks. So that was the thing. And then over time, my skills got better. So I was pricing them, and I was doing them in a week. So I just doubled my hourly rate, and then I could take on another client. So that would then leave me. Then I got cocky, and I said, no, that should be 10 grand. And I started overpricing, and I wasn't getting the jobs, or the client was getting pissed off. Does that make sense? So I think they're both the same thing. Underpricing, because if you're like, your prices would your hourly rate would naturally go up with your skill set.
Because you're doing things quicker.
Because you're doing things quicker, you're getting better. So the market still says that a website for a certain type of business is a certain type of price. Like the market dictates the price, but your skill set can get the job done quicker, more efficiently, and then your hourly rate goes up. So when I was what I thought was underpricing, and how I did it, just to kind of go back to that, was I basically had a package. People were coming in. I was like, "Yep, you'll get this is the amount. You'll get this." But I wasn't. I was putting limits on revisions, but I wasn't putting limits on the size of the site. Does that make sense? So I wasn't saying that this job you're getting 15 pages or 5 pages or 20 pages. I was just saying you get one revision at design, one revision after development, and one other revision to make sure everything is working. But like they could have got a 50-page website off me because it wasn't in that limitation wasn't in the agreement.
Okay. And so now I noticed that on your website you have kind of one-off payment structure, and then you've also got this unlimited revisions per month type scenario. So it seems like you've got both of those two different payment structures happening. Can you talk to us about why you're doing that and how that came about?
So with the packages, the fixed price packages, how that came about was for clarity, both for myself and the client, and to make things quick for me to quote, because with everybody, it was like, how do you price? What do you want? And then you'd spend 4 hours doing a proposal, and then you wouldn't get the job. And that's 4 hours of you that you have to try and make up in a week that's only meant to be 40 hours long. That's 10% of your week. I'm pretty sure everybody has experienced that. So I just decided to price per page, and how much time will it take me to do animations? How much time will it take me to do this? And kind of averaged it. How much do I want to make? And with these prices that I have at the moment, it's like some jobs take me longer because of incredible animations that a designer would do, or like really subtle stuff, really like intricate kind of Webflow stuff. And then other pages would be super simple, like comparing an about page to a terms and conditions page. But overall, the average is that it's a price that I'm happy with. So that's why it was to save my time pricing jobs, and to be clear, have something clear. And so what I usually say to clients is that if we do multiple jobs, there's some days I'm going to win because I'm going to do it faster, but then I'm not going to, if something gets super complicated, you're not going to get another bill off me. So there's clarity and there's a fixed price. So that was where the fixed price came up. And then the retainers came from, I was doing day rates, and I noticed that I'm not needed for 8 hours a day, but I might be needed for 8 hours over the week. Or I'm not needed for 2 days a week, but maybe next week I'm needed for 2 days a week. And it seems to work better that the clients seem to be happier that if they can message me on a Monday saying, let's say I'm meant to be working for them on a Thursday, oh, can you change this? And I'm like, yeah, I'll have it done in 24 hours, instead of saying, oh, I'll wait till Thursday to do it. So, and the flexibility has been beneficial to both me and the clients.
What are your thoughts on like value-based pricing? Because it seems that you have kind of done this judgment based on how many hours you're working, and also maybe what the market is willing to pay. But what do you think about value-based pricing as a structure?
Yeah, I'm not 100%. I'm not an expert in it, and I have done tested it out ever so slightly. But I would rather price a job that I'm happy with, a price that I'm happy with, and make sure I get the job than price something that you're completely blown out of the water and not get it. Now, if you get it, let's say, I don't know, BMW contact me, I would still price right now what I would price for a shop down the road. And the way I would think about it is if BMW were happy with me, that next year when my prices go up, they're not going to bat an eyelid. And that my value for them would go up with my experience. And I do see it, like I know there is a lot of chat about price based on the client, but I don't know. I haven't seen that work for me, but that doesn't mean it doesn't work for others.
But that's a fascinating way of looking at your client, though, because you're not judging the cost based off that project. You're judging the value to you that the client provides over years. That's a human being that if you do a good job for, they will want to keep working with you. So it sounds like you're kind of pricing on the relationship as much as just trying to be like, right, I'm going to try and charge like a tenth of the value that I'm going to provide for them, or trying to work that out on a sales call.
Yeah, and maybe that kind of goes back to the way I've set up my prices, is that I'm pretty shit at sales, to be honest. So I don't have, I'm not interested in doing 10 calls a week and throwing out that little psychological snippet. Have you got a BMW, or how did you drive here? So, then you should pay me X amount because of whatever. I'm not interested in doing that because I think that'll just take more time for me and more stress. If you're good at it, go for it. But it's not. I'm not good at that. So, I think
that's important to hear, though, because I think a lot of the people that listen to this podcast are quite new to Webflow, and they're like, "How do I get 10K clients?" And it's like, just if you enjoy doing the work, then you don't necessarily need to be charging that much to get work. You might not be able to charge that much at the start, but if you keep doing work, your skill sets will improve, your margins will improve over time, because you're actually doing more work in less time, and as a result, you've got food, shelter, like you're doing the thing that you enjoy, and that's kind of the motivation for getting into Webflow. So
and just on that one, like, I know, the internet is full of 10K a month. I did 10K a month, and everything's about 10K. It's a beautiful round number. It triggers people in a way. And like, even me, when I read, I'm just human. I read stuff on Twitter and people are doing it. Last month I was on this amount, and this month I'm on that amount. And it's like, fuck, how come I'm not doing that? And, I'm like every other business online, booms and busts in months. And now I've got a kid with a partner who's going on maternity leave, so it's like bust, but I've done websites that have been 10K. I've done websites that have been 20K, but I don't make 10 or 20K off those websites. And that's the truth. I don't when I do a website that is that amount, I've got a UX designer, I've got a graphic designer, I've got a project manager, sometimes a photographer or an illustrator or whatever is going on there, and myself. So like, if you do a 10K job or a 20K job and there's 5 people that need to get paid, even if you average that out, even if 20K, you take 10% profit, people are down to like 3,000 euros each. So, it's when you, the only times that I've done jobs that have been that big, it's been with a team, and everybody has done well out of it. But it's like, I'm not coming home with 10K. And I think there's a little bit of dishonesty in all of the internet world about those kind of numbers.
Yeah. And I was actually speaking to another agency owner who talked about, there's a lot of people saying, oh yeah, we did like a 20K job, 30K job, whatever. But actually, those types of projects involve a marketing team that you've got to, go to about decision making. You've got to basically, do the project by committee. It's not going to be the most creative piece of work that you can do because it's kind of homogenized by all these different voices and stakeholders. The project's going to be generally way longer. So, in terms of hours that you're working for that amount of money, it might even out as the same as doing, a 2-week, 3-week project for a local shop that they might just need a website up quickly. So, I think it's really important to kind of call BS on that one.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it's not happening, and I'm not saying people aren't doing that, but I would just put it this way: if you do 52 grand websites in a year, that's 100 grand. If you can do one every 2 weeks, it'll be bloody hard work. But there you go. That's you could, if you do one 10K job a year, you only make 10 grand. That's the way I'd look at it.
Yeah. So advice for young Webflowers out there: get your Webflow chops up and money will take care of itself, is essentially maybe partly what you're saying there.
What I'm saying is don't. So when I say underpricing, if you're, don't take a job for 500 euros that's going to take you 40 hours a week for 4 weeks. Don't do that. Make sure you're making, if you want to make 20 euros an hour, make sure you're making 20 euros an hour. If you want to, that's what I'm trying to say. And then with skills, that 20 euros an hour will become 50 euros an hour, and can become 50 euros quite quickly. So that's the, be fair to yourself. Don't undercut yourself would be the main thing. And then maybe try and avoid the self-doubt that there probably is with a lot of what you see online about people making multiple thousands a month.
Yeah, I think there's kind of like a strange thing that happens online where someone will talk about how much money they're earning to get followers, and then more and more people will follow them, so they look like they've got authority and credibility in the space. So not only do they get followers, but they might actually get clients from that. So it's kind of like this weird pyramid scheme.
And but also if someone is happy about breaking a ceiling of 10K and they want to celebrate that, like, cool, let them at it, and celebrate it with them. It is an awesome achievement if you've done a 10K job, or you've made 10K, or I'd celebrate that. I just would don't make it feel make you feel like it's don't feel like an imposter because you haven't made it. Is what I'm trying to say. Like I don't. Yeah, it's not. I wouldn't say it's a pyramid scheme or it's disingenuous, or just celebrate it for what it is. It's an achievement, but don't feel like you're not as good, or your worth is less, or that it is. I have to get it. And if I haven't got it by next month, I failed. That kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Tell me about what was that?
A bit of a tangent there. We've gone around in it.
No, I think it's important to talk about this stuff. I mean, money is one of those weird things that I feel like some people talk about too much, some people don't talk about enough, and it's refreshing to hear a point of view where it's just like, you have good months, you have bad months, you got to survive, so charge accordingly, but you don't necessarily need to be charging 10K, because I do agree there's this kind of fetishization of that number, it seems. I don't know if we've already talked about this one. Tell me about failure number 2, overpricing.
Yeah, so we kind of did. So that's where let's use the target of 10K a month. So I've definitely done this. I wouldn't say, maybe I got cocky, got a job, a couple of really good jobs, and then I was like, I'm not taking anything less. And priced a couple of old clients out, and threw out some new prices to old clients coming back for new work. They didn't take it, and then priced stuff for new clients, and it jobs just didn't come in. And that's where what I was saying is that, you can double or triple your rates, but if you're doing, like, let's say you double your rates and you're doing 1/3 of the work, you're not making more money. And a little bit, I'll tell you this is what actually happened, right? Overpriced. Let's say I doubled my rates and 1/3 of the work came in, so I'm down money, and then I was hustling, marketing. I was still doing 40 hours a week, and I turned around to my partner and I was like, I was so stressed, and I was like, this is fucking bullshit. I'm making no money but working 50 hours a week, because I was still putting in the time to find work, but I wasn't getting work. Does that make sense?
Mm.
So, and I was confident with the prices. I thought I was giving good value, but the market didn't want it, and I got bit pretty hard.
So I think this is an important point to say then, that a lot of people try and get new clients that can charge more, because they're like, well, I'm more valuable, I can charge more, and I'm going to try and get new clients. But actually, the consistency of the clients that you already had sounds like you would have been sorted. Like, you probably would have done that work a lot quicker.
Mm-hmm.
No, they're not charging. You're not able to charge crazy prices, but they know you, they like you, they trust you, and they'll just keep giving you work. So, is that how you feel looking back in hindsight? You should have just been,
100%.
These guys are good. Let's carry on.
I could have, instead of doubling my prices, I could have put 20% on, or even 50% on, and maybe I would have had, kept some of those clients. But I kind of got like, I don't want these clients anymore because they don't. Yeah. And I completely devalued them as businesses and people, and how they've helped support my life by trusting in me in the past. And I didn't have the other clients to replace them with. So yeah. There was a squeaky bum time there once upon a time, and I definitely wouldn't do it again. So yeah, there's overpricing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've got two sides of the coin here. I've never had an episode where the failures are like the opposites, like yours. You've got underpricing, and then overpricing is failure number 2. Since we've kind of gone both sides of the coin, then, I mean, did you reconcile the situation by saying to your old clients, hey guys, you know what, the prices that we originally talked about, that we originally had, I'm happy to now do that work? Or did you get new clients in the end and carry on from there?
No, I didn't reconcile it with those particular clients. I just didn't repeat the same mistake when different old clients came back, if you know what I mean. So it was almost like A/B testing with my clients, which is fucking stupid. So yeah, I just was like, oh, my prices have gone up a small bit, 20%, 25%, and it worked better.
Yeah.
And yeah, work, you can't reconcile that. When a client is gone, they needed the job done, they've got someone else, like, you can't get them back.
And
it's pretty hard unless you undercut, and I'm not interested in undercutting someone. And it'd be pretty bad saying, hey, my prices are twice the price, but now I'm going to undercut that last person. Like, that's no. So just they're working with other really talented people.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I mean, so I feel like there might be listeners here now who are like, wait, how much should I charge for a website? And what you're really saying is that it's a process of figuring out, but don't get too cocky.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking like, um, if you're if you're charging 20 euros an hour, let's say, and it takes you 4 hours to figure out this complex animation. Okay, charging the client 80 euros then is in a project that might be 1,000 euros. It's not that it's not a problem. I don't see that as a problem. But if you're charging 100 euros an hour and you take 4 hours to figure out that same problem and you charge them 400 bucks, I think that's a problem. You're not worth 400 euros. You're 100 euros an hour then. But once you've learned that skill and you've regurgitated it a couple of times to someone, well, then it's like, hey, oof, not everybody knows this trick that I know. This trick is worth at least twice because it took me 4 hours to do it. I can now do it in 30 minutes or 15 minutes. But someone else would have to learn it in 4 hours or 2 hours, maybe if they're of a higher skill. So maybe that's when you go, oh, maybe my value is now 40 euros an hour or 30 euros an hour or whatever it is. And maybe you don't have, and that's where the value goes up based on now I can take on a second project and get 2 projects done. Instead of it taking 4 weeks to do 2 projects, I can do it in 3 weeks.
Mm.
And edge your prices up. That would be the way.
Okay, so if I was to try and summarize what you just said, essentially what you're saying is don't get cocky, cover your costs, but obviously recognize how much value you're providing someone, but realize that your skill sets are going to increase over time, which means that every hour that you have now, your hourly rate is going up because you can do jobs so much quicker. But don't be a dickhead, really.
Yeah, don't be a dickhead like me.
Tell me about failure number 3, losing a client that was worth 23K a year.
Yeah,
that makes me cry inside.
Yeah, that sucked. And that kind of goes between underpricing and overpricing, and this is the result of doing both. Awesome client, worked with them for years. Really good relationship, really friendly. There's no reason why I should have lost this client. And they were really good people, really consistent work. But I thought I was undercharging. And then my quality of work for them started to come into question. I was leaving jobs, doing them slowly, and then but still, I still felt like I was doing the work. And then there was a change in management, and whenever there's a change in management, they look at everything, and they were looking at what's this retainer, and jobs were coming in. I was doing them. Jobs were coming in. I was doing them. They felt that the jobs were not being done quick enough, maybe to the standard that they wanted. And then it just became this snowball where it ended up taking more time than I wanted it to take. And the relationship just slowly broke down. And then it got to a stage where I was just like, we just have to, thanks very much for the last couple of years, but we have to go different directions, because even when the work being produced that I thought was of certain standard, the correct standard, they didn't see it as the correct standard, and they were probably right, and then it was like we just couldn't reconcile that. So that came from me thinking I was undercharging them, but over the course of a year, when I lost the client, I was like, fuck, I just lost 20 grand.
I'm trying to understand kind of the time scales as to this, Webflow pricing like change, because I mean, I imagine you felt you were underpricing at the start of your, after you'd been working for a couple of years, maybe you felt like you were underpricing. Then you suddenly ramped up because you were like, you know what, I don't need all these clients. I can do, the same amount of hours, but charge double if I lose half of them type thing. And then you were like, oh shit, guys, yeah, I made a mistake, but it was kind of too late at that point. And then you've now kind of reverted back to, you know what, I don't enjoy sales. I just want the work and to do the work and I'll get paid. I don't need, massive clients. I just need consistency of work. Is that kind of like that? I have understood that kind of trajectory correctly, haven't I?
I think everybody's like that. Everybody just wants consistency. Yeah. Yeah.
And this is over kind of how long a time period? Because I'm just comparing this to like my own Webflow journey, and I'm just intrigued when I'm going to get really fucking cocky and collapse.
Well, okay. So going back to this particular client, the mistake I made with them was I didn't I didn't talk about increasing my prices year on year or even every 2 years. But my prices for everybody else was going up. So then I was like, oh, these guys are paying me this amount and these guys are only paying me this amount. But then when I lost the client, I was like, shit, these guys were paying me 20 grand a year. It's just like, that was, it could have been prevented. It might not have been prevented. Like maybe it was never going to work out, but I did lose a client that was worth 20 grand a year. And a part of me thinks of it as because I was, probably didn't value it enough.
It's interesting how you kind of flipped your mindset, even though your skill set has increased over the years. You're like, actually prioritize the relationship of the client rather than the price of the one-off job that you might be getting from them.
Yeah, definitely. Because businesses don't want to find new people. They want to trust someone. They want to keep you on board. Like it's not worth, like even for them, it's not worth it for them to even have a back and forth email discussion about whether something is of standard or not. Like they don't want that. They just want things done. They want to trust you. They essentially want you to be a part of their team, but also knowing that like if it gets to squeaky bum time, that they can cut the contractor or freelancer. So yeah, definitely, nurture every single client you have. And, if you give reasonable increases and they're not into that, well, that's fine. But,
can you tell anyone that's listening a little bit about how to get retainers? Because it sounds like that's been, kind of a big part of your freelance career. And I don't think it's a topic that people talk about nearly enough.
Yeah. Oh God, like I'm no guru with any of this shit. Like I'm stumbling through, this online business world like everybody else. A good way to get a retainer is everybody knows websites are malleable. Someone will come to you with an idea and they want the moon and the stars. They want oceans rising and falling. They want everything. And you're like, when's your deadline? Next week. Okay, so we can't do that. So let's do what we can do in a week. And build them that. And then go, okay, so we've got our landing page, contact section page, whatever. What you want next? Products. Okay, we'll build that. And then, you do that a few times. You go, hey, listen, look, I can see this business. You want this. This is what we've got. This is what I'm charging you. If you hire me for a day a month, a day a week, or a day every 2 weeks, I'll give you 10% off. And it'll be better value for you. I'll get things done quicker. Our business will grow together. That would be the way I'd suggest. And that's the way I've got any retainer that I have. Yeah, the majority of the retainers that I've had, yeah. That's how I've got them.
But that makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, if you know that you're enjoying working with that client and that, that is quite easy, then you can decide after doing some work for them, hey, why don't I offer a retainer? I think that's a lot better than, other people I've spoken to about how they've got retainers where they've kind of just been like, it was a part-time job, but I didn't really want the part-time job, but I explained that I was a freelancer and I could kind of do a retainer thing. What you're saying is actually, if you know them and you have a decent relationship with them already, that's when you can take the initiative and offer them that.
I'm just saying that's the way my longest term retainers my most valuable retainers have worked out from that kind of experience. But I've also pitched, someone who's got amazing ideas, and then they're like, but I don't know about this, or I don't know about that. And I go, okay, so instead of it being a fixed price project, let's go on to a retainer. In 1 month, we'll get approximately this amount of work done, depending on UX decisions, complexity of the site, and then we can go on to another month. And if you want to stop it or whatever, we can. Or if you want to continue it, we can continue it. So I have done it that way as well. When someone has come to me who's been unclear of what their fixed goal is for this particular time.
Yeah, and then you're positioning yourself as more of a consultant as well, which I think is like we can chat through things. We can make this work if we do move in a direction and actually we need to test it and then potentially pivot. So I think that's like really, really valuable to say as well.
That's so interesting. Like that's probably the thing I find the most enjoyable about working long term with people is the evolution of someone's business and being able to work in that environment. It's super interesting just to see what people are trying to do or how they're doing it, and how, especially like entrepreneurs, like proper ones that are just like, I want this done yesterday, and they've got a new idea, and then they've got they've a marketing meeting next week. It's like, can you try this? Like, yeah, cool, let's go for it. And then you figure things out for them. Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Yeah. So if you don't mind me asking, how much of your business is kind of weighted towards retainers versus getting new clients or one-off gigs?
It's 50-50.
Okay.
Yeah. The retainers keep the mortgage paid, and the retainers are like the monthly income.
The meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, this is a really, really powerful episode from things that I think there's a lot of people online talking really loudly about 10Ks and how to get big clients and how to reel in the whales or whatever. And it's just like, actually, that's there is another way of thinking about freelancing and focusing more on like relationships and consistency rather than the one-off big client that people seem to really want to get, rather than working with smaller clients.
Yeah, the big client could be awesome too, though. Don't say no to big clients.
We're not trying to say that whales are bad in terms of the clients we're talking about. But yeah, I hear you. I just think though that it's not like one way's right and the other way's wrong, or it's just to say that there is another way of thinking about freelancing rather than just trying to get bigger and bigger clients like the whole time.
Yeah, like as I said earlier, and now I'm not doing these numbers, but like if you got 52 grand websites in a year, if you could figure that out, like that's 100K. That's there's but then you could also do 250 grand websites in a year, and that's 100K. But guaranteed those 250 grand websites, there's going to be, I'd say, at least 6 people, maybe 10 people working on it, and everybody needs to get a fair share of that pie.
There's the soundbite for the episode right there. So, harder question for you to finish then. What is your next failure going to be?
My next failure? I just had a daughter.
Awkward time to ask this question. Okay.
I don't know. My next failure, well, I suppose it'd be something with trying to rear a child. I'm sure she's going to scream at me that she hates me someday and that I've done nothing for her.
And then you can play her back this episode. Well, I actually predicted this.
I'll tell you what my next failure won't be is I won't do what I did before and undervalue other just I won't get too cocky again. My next failure might be not keeping up with technology and moving with technology. That's a very real concern. Like I'm super excited about Wiz. I'm super excited about how Webflow logic and this new direction of app building. And then, this AI writing tool came out last week and it was just like, I can write code. So I'm not afraid of those tools that are coming into the market, but maybe I'm afraid of keeping up with those tools and not being down with the new nerds and being able to utilize these tools to give me a living. Maybe that's probably the failure that I'd be worried about.
Interesting. I mean, it sounds like you've already got the building blocks of the internet down with HTML and CSS and JavaScript. So I think you're probably far further ahead than a lot of people who are maybe seeing Wiz and things for the first time, if that makes you feel any better.
Thank you, though.
If anyone has any questions for you about this episode, where can they find you, or where could they potentially message you about that?
LinkedIn or Twitter, probably for initial chat, and then probably LinkedIn and Twitter is the best way to go.
Awesome. I'll put those in the show notes below. Is there anything else that you want to say to anyone that's starting their Webflow career now? Any nuggets of advice?
Man, just enjoy it. It's so much fun. It is the funnest development tool out there. Go absolutely mental with animations and then rein yourself back in. Follow all the amazing designers out there. Try and copy what they're doing and reverse engineer it. But make sure there's good structure underneath it. Look out for those div classes with a load of numbers at the end and the copy divs and all that. But just so much fun. It's the funnest dev tool I've worked on, and so just enjoy it.
Awesome advice there. Great. Thank you so much for coming on Webflail. And if you guys haven't signed up for the Webflail Roundup, you should go to webflail.com/newsletter, and this will be direct into your inbox. This edited podcast fresh. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast, Alan. And this will be out.
Thanks for having me. It was a good chat.
Cheers.
Good stuff. Slán. Bye.